Hey everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. Oh my word, I'm Josh, that's Caleb, and you know why we're here, baby. It is time.
Let's go.
Husker football, Big Ten football is back.
Yes.
And much thanks to the Nebraska Cornhuskers for doing it. Caleb, how are you doing?
I'm feeling vindicated, Josh.
Yes.
That's right. Everybody was trashing on us, saying we were
Avengers
crazy.
arise. So obviously today, we're shutting down all the haters. Big Ten football is back, even with some restrictions and all of the health protocols that are going to go along with it. It's back. Desmond Howard, Mike Wilbon. Tough stuff, man. But it is exciting to be back and talking about Husker football. You know, with Husker football back, that means that Backseat Sports is back. And it has never felt better.
Get it.
My goodness. So, Caleb, what's happening with this season?
We got 9 games, all in conference, which is pretty spicy. And a lot of COVID tests.
Yeah.
I do not envy these players who are about to get tested.
Yeah, the season is coming back on October 23rd/24th, which is a Friday and Saturday. We're not exactly sure why they have the Friday and Saturday listed for this early, if we're going to see more Friday games or not. The official schedules have not been released for every team yet, but we are going to talk about what that's going to look like because we do know some about it already. And yeah, like Caleb said, the biggest thing off the rip that we want to talk about is the stingy medical protocol that the Big Ten has kind of established for us, which they announced on their website. There's a lot going into this.
Little room for error. There's no bye weeks in our schedule, which is crazy. So it's 9 weeks of Big Ten football and no rest.
There's daily tests and, again, like no bye week, which means no flexibility for rescheduling or things like that, especially with the tight schedule we're trying to fit in before the college football playoff at the end of the year. So there's daily testing, and the interesting thing about how they broke this down is that there's going to be green, orange, and red protocols, basically, alongside the daily testing, and that's basically a guideline for how teams can go about scheduling their practices and expecting to play and when not to play in all that inside of the safety. If over 5% of your tests test positive, that means a team isn't able to play at all, game or practice, for 7 days, which is pretty nuts. And if a player tests positive, they can't play in a game for 21 days. That is wild.
That's a third of the season. They're out.
Yeah, so like that is stingy like ruling your decisions here from the Big Ten. I mean, I get it. They're hedging their bets with their decision and how they want to go about this. On Twitter, we saw some people talking about how like creating these medical protocols to hopefully eventually say, I told you so, we should have never started. When like, think about that. 5% of 125 is like 7 tests out of 125 for the day. We don't necessarily know if it's cumulative, like throughout the few days, or if it's like daily. So like what I mean by that is like, if you have 1 test positive on a Monday, then 2 on Tuesday, then 0 on Wednesday, then 3 on Thursday. Now suddenly do you have to not play because of the combined whatever, how many, you know? I don't know. We don't know that for sure, but I think it might be daily. Where are you at with it?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing, you know, is the false positive test. We saw it with other football programs too.
And we've seen it with like Matt Stafford and a handful of NFL guys.
So does that play a role? So those guys that test positive, can we keep testing them? Can we negate positive testing, you know, and revert back? Because yeah, there's again just so many questions about it, and I really hope it's not cumulative, but if that was, it'd be really, really bad, because you're not playing football for a week, and there's no room to make it up. And like with the college football playoff, you at least have to play 8 games. I'm definitely worried, and it definitely feels like they set this up to fail a little bit, you know,
or for at least to give them a chance to be able to say the "I told you so" at some point, you know. At least as fans, we have to take the positivity and inspiration away from the NFL. They had like 5,000 tests done, and like 0.017% of them were positive. So hopefully in that regard, the players are smart. Again, those guys are a little bit more secluded than a lot of the college guys might be. There's obviously a lot of factors there with how guys are going to take care of themselves and
living in
make
a
sure
dorm
they stay
room.
safe. Yeah, dorms, how's that going to play out? You know, so there's a lot of questions with those guys. At least hopefully the team's going to avoid disaster this year, or else the season might not see all 9 games. It would be really disappointing.
Yeah, and then it kind of goes into question too, what if, you know, 2 teams are out and like left stranded? Can we substitute the team that was supposed to play that team, and can we play them that week? And are they going to really try and work to try to fit in those 8 games so that we can get a team into the college football playoff? Is that
Or,
something that they
like,
want, or no? Or is it just
How exactly? There's so many questions. Like if one of your games gets canceled and you're only gonna play, 7 of the 8 regular season games or 6 of the 8 regular season games, can you still make it to the Big Ten championship? How is that going to play out? How do tiebreakers play out? There's a lot of questions with canceled games and how that could kind of play itself out in the Big Ten, heading into like a Big Ten championship and a college football playoff, hopefully down the road for at least one of the Big Ten teams.
we're on thin ice? You are skating on thin ice, and all the players better be saints this year. I mean, stay at home, wear a hazmat suit to class.
Literally, man, live inside like your own little bubble. Legitimately, in your own little bubble, man.
Bubble yourself, bubble.
You've got like a holster of hand
a leather
sanitizer.
jacket. Yeah, holster hand sanitizer. You wear like a jacket, jeans, long socks, boots.
Dude.
Burn
It's
those
actually
clothes
insane.
that day and do it again the next. Like,
Dude, it's crazy. So, I mean, when it comes to the schedule itself, like we said, 8 games plus 1 crossover game that's going to act as our bowl game at the end of the year, besides the 2 teams that are playing in the conference championship. So, you have a potential for 9 games. It's going to be split up 4 home, 4 away for the regular season, which, only makes sense. And 6, you're going to play all of your 6 divisional opponents plus 2 cross-divisional matchups, which are going to be decided here soon. So, we're expected to get the schedule in the upcoming few days or this week, hopefully by early next week at least. Who knows nowadays with how announcements are going down with the Big Ten. It's going to be very, very interesting, to say the least.
we had Ohio State and Penn State already for our cross divisions plus Rutgers. I would assume we get Ohio State, Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, they were in our original schedule, and then in our second schedule, I would imagine they're going to be in our third one.
I would guess that they're going to try to get every single, and Rutgers was too. So, if you have to eliminate one, I would assume that they're going to give us one of the better teams, and that's more fun anyway. Like, sure, Rutgers is a win, but it's more fun to play.
But in a weird season like this, where you don't need to play to get to a bowl game, where beating Rutgers could be your 6th win to make a bowl game, give us Penn State, give us Ohio State. I'm in. So. I mean, that would mean our schedule will be, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Northwestern, Purdue, Ohio State, and Penn State as our 8 games. And then how the crossover game works is they're saying they're going to try to line you up with a team across the division in the standings. So let's say Nebraska finishes first. But for the sake of the argument, let's say second. Second in the Big Ten West. Well, that would mean that we would play the team that finished second in the Big Ten East in our crossover game. It's more likely we'll probably end up playing Indiana. Or, maybe worst case scenario, we're playing Rutgers. Who knows?
Hey,
Who knows?
we got to play them anyway. So, yay.
Right.
I'm excited. It's going to be weird. I mean, with the NFL, it seems like the transfer was pretty much okay. The nice thing is we don't have a new coach this year. We don't have a new offensive system, so that definitely gives us an advantage, I guess.
For sure. I think teams that are going to be going into that new coaching system, or like a new offensive scheme, new offensive coordinator, a lot of returning starters are going to have a big time advantage. Guys who have a lot of consistency from last year to this year.
Yeah, and luckily our new offensive coordinator at least has worked with Scott Frost before.
Yeah,
so
Frost has a lot of influence with how that game plan's going to come out. So I feel very confident. Plus, we've had our fair share of practice time this fall as well. So let's go Huskers.
Yeah, it's gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine.
Exactly. So
big expectations. How do you feel expectations wise? For Nebraska,
just our initial reaction for kind of thinking about how the schedule is going to play out for us.
Yeah, because I mean, before when it was just a normal season, we needed to see improvement from Scott Frost year 3.
Right, and those non-con games were going to be so important for the development early on, to see what we had in Adrian Martinez and the question marks at wide receiver without J.D. Spielman, and the return of a lot of defensive players, and our secondary kind of getting its form back. But now we're getting thrown right into the fire. So it's going to be interesting to at least. Obviously, we're going to do a full breakdown of the schedule and a full predictions once the schedule is actually announced.
Take 3.
It'll be take 3 of schedule predictions. But yeah, I mean, I'm hesitantly optimistic. I'm a little bit, of course, I think, as you would probably agree, a little bit worried about the QB situation, how that could play out. I mean, I would imagine in a weird year like this, you're going to go with the guy who's already been playing as a starter in Adrian Martinez. One of the most interesting factors, which I think, a lot of the SEC schools, the Big 12 schools, the ACC schools have already talked about and probably discussed and how they're going to approach it this year, is with the eligibility flexibility, a weird combo there, that the NCAA is allowing with this COVID season. Considering the Pac-12 still isn't playing, they're granting players extra eligibility even with these years. That means that in a year where you wouldn't lose your eligibility of a season in that instance, which is huge news for a lot of guys in the Huskers, I think, especially for teams like us that are lacking depth. I think it's really, really interesting. I mean, what do you think? How do you think it's going to affect things?
It'll definitely be interesting, obviously, because I don't think the scholarship amount changes.
Right. So that's a big question.
That's going to be very difficult. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe
so
if it's worth it and a player wants to, and it's a player that you would like to have for another year,
right?
Then, all for it. And the Huskers could be in a situation where that's very plausible because we have guys that are pretty good, but not draftable in the NFL.
So they want to stay for another year. That's where it gets really interesting. I think, like if you're like JoJo, and you're like, I think I'll get drafted, but maybe not. Maybe I stay for another year. Those are the types of guys you're just like, ooh, this is it. Kind of actually could be interesting.
Yeah. Do you see this season as an asterisk? Like with no bowl games, but still a college football playoff? Would you see a national championship?
If we play all 9, I don't think so. I think it would feel pretty legit, all things considered, right?
Yeah. I mean only a non-conference. The only weird thing is the consideration of, we saw the Big 12 suck against Pac-12, against the Sun Belt this week, and we don't see any crossover games. We can't, get any pulse on how good, most of the
until
teams
the college football playoff. It's going to be tough.
I mean, Clemson's playing Citadel. Not that it matters because they're Clemson and they're ridiculously good. But I'm just saying, like for other schools that are playing bad, crossover games, it's going to be really hard to judge the top 25. Because we don't get to see any sort of Wisconsin versus Alabama or anything like that.
Well, I mean, top 25 rankings are going to be meaningless, all things considered, basically. At the end of the day, how can you really judge it this year, Minnesota versus, Arkansas? You really don't even know, So it's just like, that's what's going to be a little bit weird. But overall, I think the player eligibility for certain guys, like some of the key starters that are like fringe NFL guys. They could find their way back. I mean, like, then you're thinking about, like, do you play the younger guys this year to try to get them those extra reps that won't count against them in the long term? Like, like a Luke McCaffrey or, guys like that.
Anyway.
Or, like, for someone like Omar Manning who transferred here, now you get another year of Omar Manning. That's pretty nice, depending on how good he is, of course. But, I mean, those are the types of conversations I guess you have to have heading into this year with how that could potentially play out. So I am overall very excited about this season. I mean, hopefully we can see all 9 games. And if we do, my little heart will be very content with this college football season, all things considered. I am beyond excited.
Josh and I were down in the dumps.
That's why you weren't seeing videos.
We were crying in the corner. We were unconsolable. After the football season didn't happen. If we can get 9 games, I'm just happy. I mean, I'm happy with 1 at this point. Like the fact that we get to see at least 1 game.
Honestly, though, drop all your comments down below. There's so much to go off of here, man. So much energy, so much excitement overall, I think, in Husker Nation.
Let's go.
Shout out Buckeyes fans. We had some bonding on Twitter. It was a fun time, kind of leading the charge for the Big Ten, bringing it back that way, kind of together. And, maybe you wouldn't have stood up if we didn't stand up, but I don't think we could have moved the needle on our own. We needed you Ohio State guys out there to push the needle in our favor. So we appreciate that. It's been a blast. And as always, guys, I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This has been Backseat Sports, and we will see you next time. We are.